we shouldn't be not considered for job position because of some aspects of our identities. We need to check if where you good professional, you have the commitment, you have this and have the other skills and knowledge. That it's important. But your appearance, your faith, if with who you are, that it's not the point. That it's not inside this professional umbrella.
Our next guest immigrated from Brazil and currently works with an organization called Pride at Work Canada. As an openly gay man, he shares his experiences of self-preservation to avoid homophobia, its intersection between workplace and society, and how he's evolving to become his authentic self. Welcome to the show, Luis. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing well, and I'm excited for this conversation. And it's a moment that I can share some of my experience, but also I can learn with my own experience when I give just the voice to them.
I love that. So, I mean, even in speaking and sharing your story, there's a learning aspect of it for you as well.
Yeah. When I think that when we visit our memories, we can do that in a way that will be learning again, or we can just see from a different perspective, and we are changing every day.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, I hear the accent. You grew up in Brazil.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up as a young man in Brazil?
Yeah. Thank you for the young man. Growing up, I think that could be tough everywhere. But for myself, I had a quite good childhood that I can say. I have good memories. I also have the bad memories as everyone. And but in relations to my own identity, it's been a process that I just could face who I'm becoming years later. But growing up in Brazil, it's really tough. Consider that the Brazil, it's the country that leads the homophobia and transphobia in the world. We are responsible for more than 40% of the trans murders in the whole world since that they start getting the statistics in 2008. And that it's tough, and when we see that live and we experience not just like the transphobia, but all the LGBTQ plus phobias.
Wow. That is news to me. I did not know that. So they lead the world in murders of transgendered.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is not a good list to be at the top.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, you don't want to be.
Yeah, and it's really tough. So every year we have the numbers from that the year one organization gets all the data, and those cases are the reported ones. So that we know that we had or they were considered a case of transphobia or homophobia, but how many others they are just hidden in our societies and we don't know what is happening. We know that some countries and cultures, people really face a hard time. More some countries, they if for you being gay or lesbian, trans, death penalty, it's your destiny, and that it's really really sad. And that could come from the government or from the society in general, because someone you ended up killed by someone.
Yeah, and I've heard that even in sort of like watching television shows or speaking with people, where they go into another country unsuspecting to them, they are found out to be, within the
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus spectrum, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden end up in jail, sentenced to death, all of these types
Yeah.
of things. And, in a society where we hope that we can be our authentic selves, which I love that you're discovering that journey. You would hope that you have the freedom to express yourself as you are. And unfortunately, that is not always the case. So in Brazil, was there a specific time where you knew you were gay as you were growing up? Was there a time where you were like, I feel like this is who I am?
Yeah. What I record from my childhood, it's I always feel attraction for to masculine identities. I had that, but also I had the attraction to the feminine identities in a way. Now I'm calling myself as like yay queer man, but I think that our sexuality is more than that, and but that it's another topic. But I kind of knew it, but I had a challenge to for like to accept myself who I was and who I am now. And I have a gay brother. He's older than me, and seeing like he's going on his path, I just put in mind that I should be the one to be the straight one, and that was never asked to me. And years later, I came to Canada, and like for the first time, just to improve my English, have an international experience and everything. And it was when I kind of realized that I was unhappy with who I was, that I was not, I was living a bisexual life, and that was something that was giving me challenge, and I just decided to go for what I for who I would find happiness, or that would just help me with my happiness. So, and then I became more like a openly gay queer man, um, and that it's a process.
Thank you for sharing so openly. I think that that internal struggle is one that more people need to understand, because even in the work that I've done in the community, um, even the suicide rates are so high within the community, and it really broke my heart, because this is a new journey to learn about this community for myself, and it was really heartfelt when I could understand what was going through people's minds.
Yeah, and as you're talking about suicide, sorry, that it's a challenge that it's not just related to the LGBTQ plus communities. We have people, they are straight, but in a certain way that they face homophobia, and they go in a different, like dealing with depression and suicide. It that you have data that relate to suicide and those homophobia behaviors, even in not for gay people, like for members of the LGBTQ plus communities.
Wow.
We had a
Yep.
case. Sorry, we recently we had a case in Brazil. A straight young boy. Yeah,
Really? Are
yeah,
you still very connected back home to Brazil? Like in people and
yeah. I
connection?
have family, so I'm an immigrant to Canada. I came here 5 years ago. It's something that we can talk about, like what it's been a gay immigrant in Canada,
I
and I know
totally
that
wanted to. I totally. Well,
I know that you do. Yeah, but it's hard to not just disconnect from your home, like from back home. And I follow the news. I follow like what it's happening with the LGBTQ plus the LGBTQ community there. I've been involved with some Brazilian community members here. We organized two online Pride events last year and this year, just to celebrate this connection between both countries, because we are Brazilians, but we're also Canadians as we are living in Canada, and it's the path. So.
I love that. I love that. So two things. The first one is I noticed that you made it a small correction when you were referencing the community or communities back home in Brazil versus here in Canada. So you said LGBTQ2 plus. And then you said LGBTQ when you were referencing Brazil. Can you maybe share with me the difference?
Yeah, in North America, the indigenous communities, the indigenous people, they use the term two spirit or indiqueer, just LGBTQ indigenous person for talking about their identities. And the term two spirit is related to First Nations indigenous communities in North America. So some in US and Canada, it's really common. But when you're talking about other communities in other countries, it, they if they don't have a similar term or that you can replace, it's just not to use because it doesn't apply to that reality. So it's more, and it's how even when I'm writing something, I go with this difference. I'm talking to communities in Canada, so I'm including. I'm adjusting the acronym, and the acronym is at the end it's a word to a big umbrella of gender identity, gender expressions, and sexual orientation.
I love that. Thank you. I mean, that helps me so much with my own cultural competency and knowledge to better understand these communities, right? Because once again, this is a journey for me as I learn more and I immerse myself more in understanding the different marginalized communities who feel that they're underrepresented or not part of dominant culture. So, I
Yeah,
mean, you had a brother that was older. He was gay. Did that
he
give you
was no, he is.
Oh, sorry. Yes, he is gay, and how did his openness sort of maybe pave a path for you at all? Maybe it had no influence.
No, it had, but also like I experienced like some positive and negative impact
Okay.
because of that. The positive were like it would be easier. I would have access to all the resource. I would be learning with him. I would be following some of the steps that he was taking at the time. But at the same time, I faced the challenge that as someone asking me to be the straight one, and I was pushing that, hurting myself for one identity that wasn't mine. Um, and that was like, and for years I experienced, as I mentioned, like our sexuality is more than you say like I like this and like that, and we can uh, meet a person and you feel the attraction, and that it could ended up to be someone who is a cis man, a cis woman, a trans man, a trans woman. So we just need to be open and see like I will be happy with this person and just follow what are you feeling. So as I was trying to say, yes, it helped me to have an older gay brother and have access to some resource, but at the same time I faced the challenge because I just put in mind that I should care like the name of the family, like having kids.
Mm.
And I can have kids. I can raise a family being gay. And that it's, but at the time, and when you're young, you're just like, oh no, I need to go with the standards that you have in society.
Absolutely. I think one of the most beautiful things is when I see a gay couple with a child and you could see the love and the affection, and that's really what the child needs. I mean, they want two, or hopefully you have two loving parents, but more love the better, and really it's just about the quality of the upbringing and the relationship
Yeah.
versus whether the sexual identity or preference of those two parents are what dominant culture is looking for. So you
Yeah, the Beatles were saying that all we need is love.
that is very true. That is very true. So I mean, you jump on a plane, you come here 5 years ago. I'm sure you had some expectations, as Canada is sort of globally known as an inclusive country. We celebrate this huge pride parade that is just a great celebration every year. You get here, Do you feel like the reality matched up with the perception of the inclusiveness for the LGBTQ2 plus community?
Yeah. Yes and no.
Okay.
I came to Canada twice before moving here, so it was helpful for my process to accept who I am, or who I was at the time and who I am now. But when I came here, I just decided I'm not. I won't hide myself anymore. Back home, for professional experience and jobs, not disclosing my sexual identity, like my it was a kind of protection. But in Canada, I knew that it's a different country. I was expecting a more acceptance, so I left my closet there. It hadn't space to come with my luggage, uh, and I just decided I'm an openly gay man, as you introducing me, and I was mentioned that I came with my husband, that I moved to Canada, and some people there start correct me to say that I have a partner or a spouse instead of saying the word husband. And I was like, oh, this is weird. And yeah, because you don't know if people will accept or not. So go start saying that you have a partner, maybe two, three, four times, and then you mention that you have a husband. And I was, this is a little BS. And it was like my first contact to. I knew that I'm not naive, that I just find the paradise here and inclusion everywhere. Um, but I start facing the first challenge from the conversations when I was just sharing. Oh, I'm just new in the country, and they ask me, "Oh, are you alone or not?" And when I shared that piece, they were saying like, yeah." So it's welcoming, but it's also not so warming. It's not a warming welcome.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, I would assume that you saying your husband, if you're confident and comfortable in saying that, then why should someone else feel discomfort and try to correct you when you feel so comfortable? Because I do hear a lot of people say partner, and I'll be honest with you, the my bias automatically wonders, is this person using partner because of the fact that they are in an LGBTQ2 plus relationship? But sometimes that's not the case. Maybe they're not married, this and that. But for you to openly say husband, I think that that is you being your authentic self. But then someone else sort of pushing you back and saying, "Well,
Yeah,
don't tell me it's your husband. Tell me it's your partner." That's
yeah.
weird.
The when you're sharing like words like partner or like spouse, it's just neutral language that it could, and people may assume or not that we are talking about that person. Uh, it's from the LGBTQ2 plus communities, as you just mentioned your own bias on that, and we have ours. That are just start assuming by the appearance, by the way that the people express themselves, and but correcting, it's not someone for like using a spouse or wife, and you say like, oh, but you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, you should be using different words. No, just mirror the language. That it's for words like husband and wife if they are member of the communities. It's for pronouns. It's just mirror the language that the person is saying, and you have the respect. You just respecting that person's identity. Is like people that usually have nicknames, or they have a long first name and they just go with a short version. How you would go, you start mirroring that language. Why in those words? Why not do with other aspects? And you just helping to create a more authentic self community, that everyone, you feel the sense of belonging, that you feel embraced, that they can be who they are.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Hey, listen, Louise, you're giving us so much great information in terms of just understanding, right? I think that people just want to be understood, they want to be heard, they want to be respected, they want to be treated with dignity, like, these sort of basic things. Now, when you got here, you mentioned, there was a yes and no in terms of the perception versus reality. Is there anything that really sticks out for you as that really was something that I did not expect when coming to Canada as someone of the LGBTQ2+ community?
Yes, I wasn't expect like to hear the example that I shared, because I was in a place uh, that they work with immigrants. It wasn't like just I was shopping and suddenly I was in a store and the person just asked me. No, it was in an environment that I felt protect to share that piece of information because they asked me and I just shared. It's not like you go to grab a burger somewhere else and someone you ask like, oh, okay, you wanna lettuce, bacon, and mayo, and are you from here? Are you alone? It's not. You don't have that kind of conversations. Um, so it was the first like bad experience, but I heard the F word in the bus. Not dealing with anything. I've witnessed other homophobic comments or like behaviors against someone. And I even experienced that in the workplace, like applying for a job. I heard because I had friends working with that situation, they just told me that the person who was in charge, the person is homophobic and doesn't want, it didn't want to hire someone that they knew that the person was member of the LGBTQ plus community. So it was like really, really harsh to on this to realize what happened to me, and even when I tried to report, I got a backlash. I gotten the support that I was expecting.
Yeah, there's I've come to notice this very recently, for minorities and marginalized communities, that are not a part of dominant culture, that there is a liability aspect to being honest and truthful about some of the slights or microaggressions or just explicit hate, and discrimination that happens out there. And unfortunately, you are left to feel marginalized even further, while
Yeah.
trying to raise your voice. And it's interesting. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, and it's just talking about the marginalized, and then when you're an immigrant, that it's also part because depends on the status of your immigration. You might try to pursue like and do something, or oh, if I maybe start that, I won't be getting my like I won't be able to renew my visa, or they will not give the PR or the citizenship. It's really harsh for immigrants here to move forward with some issues related to their own identities, and it could be like the when you're talking about LGBTQ plus uh, people, or if it's other aspects. Islamophobia, it's been huge. We had a case recently in London, Ontario, that the family was killed by someone. So those issues we just keep in the marginalized communities or minorities. They are not welcome when we are here together in a multicultural country.
Absolutely. I'm an immigrant myself, and I agree with many of those sentiments, and especially, the Islamophobia that happened in London. That really affected me because my daughter's mom is her family's of the Muslim culture. I have family members within my own family that are of Muslim culture. So it hurts my heart to know that someone is just walking down the street and they have that fear, like you mentioned earlier, like you're just being yourself in a bus and someone's calling out with certain words that are derogatory. And what I was going to say earlier with respect to you at work in Brazil, you sort of kept your identity sort of in the closet, if you will. You come here and you share it openly, and then you're sort of left to feel like you shouldn't have done that, right? Or there is a liability to you doing that because you didn't get the job because you were openly okay with your sexual identity.
Yeah, but then I different from the from what happened in Brazil. Here, I knew that I would have support from life. I didn't internally when I start trying to report what is happening. I mentioned to few people, and at the end was like nothing happening. But it gave me the strength to now to be working in at Pride at Work Canada, to use that experience and what happened with me to support to not happen with someone else. That doesn't matter if it's a Canadian born, if it's an immigrant. The It's not the fact. It is like we shouldn't be not considered for a job position because of some aspects of our identities. We need to check if are you a good professional, you have the commitment, you have this and have the other skills and knowledge. That it's important. But your appearance, your faith, if with who you are, that it's not the point. That it's not inside this professional umbrella.
Absolutely. And, a lot of it boils back down into intergenerational teaching, bias, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I love that you folks stand up for your community because, if you don't, who will, right? We are trying to move this needle forward for a more inclusive environment for all, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you said it. If your skills and abilities match, then it shouldn't matter what my skin color, sexual identity, or orientation is, or any of that. It should matter that I can do the job, and
Yeah,
that's what's
and
important.
also it's like setting up for future generations. Like we had people in the past doing for us today. So if we advance it to the level that we are now, and that it's not perfect, we need to continue pushing to create like a more inclusive society that will respect ourselves in the future. And the challenge now, and we need to honor those who have died for us, many of them who face like discriminations and other challenges in life, just trying to fight for their authentic self. So we need to continue fighting, not just for us, for them, and for those who are coming in the future. We're talking about not the generation that it's now, but those that will be born in 50 years.
Absolutely, my friend. The whole reason I
It,
started this company was for my daughter because, if she wanted to become openly gay, I want her to have the respect and the support and the access that anyone has. And I think it's so important with the work that you folks are doing. One of the things that I am always cognizant of is there is homophobia out there. There are people who are homophobic. They discriminate. They harass some of them, this community. And it has lasting damaging effects, both, psychologically as well as, to the individuals and the communities themselves. Can you maybe share with us some of the things that people might be able to do, some actionable steps that they might be able to do to sort of either A, step in, or B, maybe not, perpetuate this homophobia? What are your thoughts on this, Luis?
yeah, I think first we need to check before doing and intervening in a situation. It's look to yourself, see what kind of comments, jokes, expressions that you use, and that it's not related to the LGBTQ plus communities. That it could be like related to racism. We have some bad. We as a society we have expressions that is just perpetuating that. So what is just before doing, check your own bias, check what you were reproducing. It's hard because we've been reproducing models, standards from years, and to break that and start something new, it's hard. But it's not impossible. It's why I've been like promoting inclusive language. Use people were taught some. I've seen some discussions of people mention like, oh, but the pronouns they them, it's plural, and but we have so many case that we apply that in a singular. Just go with that. And other languages, it's more complex, like the French one, that it's one of the official languages of this country. It's more complex to adjust the neutral, but just go to learn, go try to learn something new, try to do something. And when you check and you're there, you might, if you're in a bus and you hear something, if you see that that person it's dealing well with the situation, maybe just to need to be next to say like, oh, you're not hurting this person anymore because that person is not alone. And just, you don't need to say something, but you just need to stand up and be with that person. If you see that the person maybe it's unprotected and you're in a situation that if you and other folks, you can try to be a barrier or some to remove what is happening there, do it. But it's like, it's action. It's, you need to do something, that it could be saying or just supporting that person. And if you need to call like police or someone else for support and to intervene in a different way, do it.
I love that. I love that you started with looking internally, right? I think that self awareness is probably one of the most important things on this journey of change because, once again, I mean, we are the change that we could be in the world, right? And I think that that's something
Yeah.
that you have embraced with some of your work that you're doing because you've experienced certain things and you want to, like you said, pave a way for the community or the communities that are coming ahead 50
Yeah.
plus years down the road. And I think that's beautiful. You know, here there's something that maybe you can help for the audience is you mentioned pronouns, and you know there's people who use pronouns, there's people who don't use pronouns. I'm on LinkedIn. I noticed that they've recently introduced pronouns. There's a bunch of other social media organizations that have started to introduce these pronouns. Can you maybe share with us what the pronouns mean to the communities and why people should embrace it?
Yeah, the pronouns means it's part of your identity. Is how you express yourself. So using the pronouns that could be the ones that we have in English, or the new other ones that relate to the language, is just one way to respect someone. That will be respect the identity of someone. If you if when someone has a nickname that doesn't like, that will be hurting. It's microaggressions, as we mentioned before, and that could lead to a more to change the mental health aspect. But when you respect the identity of someone, you're just creating the sense of belong, and that person can feel embraced by those who are surrounding them, and it's just useful. English, it's pretty easy to go with neutral language, but do your part. If someone is saying that the pronoun is that one, check. If you're not sure, use like try to use neutral language until you have the respect. Learn how to use, how to check, to express. If you're not aware of the pronouns that person, share yours before. So maybe it's one way. One thing that I used to do it when I was in person meetings with different folks that I'm not sure. This is one tip. I just start having a map of from that room and where everyone is seated, and so they will be maybe they're introducing themselves, and they'll be sharing. Oh, my name is Luis, and my pronouns him, and Victor, my pronouns him. So I'll be just mapping, and because if we're in a discussion a few minutes later, I'll be able to use the correct pronoun.
Gotcha. So you sort of like, you will look at the room, you will survey it, you will listen actively to what
Yeah,
people are saying, and then you will go ahead and embrace that language to make sure you're respecting that
yeah.
individual in conversation.
And you can practice. Just you can, if you're not sure, you can practice. You maybe can nominate. You can create an imaginary friend that you are talking all the time, and you be using the pronoun, so you become familiar. You can. This is something that my husband and I we do. We try. We sometimes we give names to objects at home. uh, so, and I was just pushing to like not just give names but give like piece of identities and using the pronouns, because was one way of helping him to use pronouns for people that he's not aware, because I'm in the field, he's not. So I he's kind of the target that the work that we do I also need to share with him, because he'll be promoting that in, even it's not directly, but just the way of using the correct language with someone, it'll be the right way to do something for future generations.
I love that. That's amazing. And that you guys come up with cool and different ways to embrace the learning, right? I think that that's what it is. And then, like you mentioned earlier, like language, like we learn how to speak at a very young age. I'm sure for you, your journey to speaking English, if Portuguese, I'm assuming, would be your first language. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Portuguese. So as you embark on this journey, it's still new sometimes, right? In terms of the enunciation, the pronunciation, and it's no different for people who are engaging with different communities to better understand their language and the things that are important to them.
Yeah, and one thing that you can do is when you're learning, if you're learning in a new language, you can start to learn since the beginning the neutral language of that language, the neutral aspects. I'm learning French again. I did in the past, years before moving to Canada, and now I'm learning again. I'm working for a bilingual organization and just improving the French that I had, that I learned in the years ago. And but since my first class, when the teacher is sharing the content, I'm asking like about neutral pronouns, neutral language. So how can I use this? And some exercise with the class. Please describe this picture, and someone just go like, "Oh, there is a man wearing black," and I just go like, "There is a person wearing black." That it's one way to, because I don't know that the identity of that person, so I'm assuming, and when it's like we need to find more creative ways to learn and to practice what we've been learning.
Very interesting and very cool. I think that is, just once again, it's the unlearning and relearning of the things that allow us to build more inclusive environments, treat others with respect and dignity, and recognize them for how they would like to be recognized. And I think that's super important.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'd come across recently was someone who, well, actually, there's two situations. So I'd love your thoughts on this. The first one was someone who mentioned that they are pronoun agnostic, which means that they do not subscribe to pronouns. It's not a part of who they are. What are your thoughts around that? Is that someone's right to choose, or is that someone's just sort of being could that be seen as a microaggression towards the community? What are your thoughts about? Because when I saw it, I was just like, huh, interesting.
I just go with a learning piece. Maybe it's someone doesn't identify with he or she or even the they, and you have other pronouns for that. We have we know people that they use all the pronouns. Doesn't matter which one. They have We have people that they have multiple pronouns, so that they use multiple pronouns in a way that you can call that person by she, her, they, them, or they, them, she, her. If you see what it's coming first, that it's We don't say preferred pronouns because you're not ice cream. I learned that with my boss.
Oh,
It's like if you see like two pronouns for someone, they're different. The first one you be like the preference, uh, but considering, but they are not the preferred pronouns. They are the person's pronouns, but there is one that sets better with the identity when you're talking about fluid. And those who don't want to use pronouns, also they are common. Um, and just continue repeat instead of using the pronouns. Just repeat the name.
that, yeah,
And
just
it's one way to adjust the language, and
right.
you know, the pronouns are to help with some grammar aspect, but you can have grammar. You keep the correct grammar when just repeating the name. Maybe it
Absolutely.
could be like, could sound weird, but grammatically it's correct.
And you're respecting the person, right? So if I say Louise, it's just this is I know that I'm referencing you. I don't have to, say he, him, they, them, because I may or may not know that as yet, right? And I
Yeah.
think you were saying about using neutral language till you understand how someone, um, what their personal preferences are, as you mentioned, right? So
No personal preference because it's with their identities, because it's part of their identities. Because pronouns, we don't you don't have preferred pronouns.
not
They
preferred,
are
but you did
just,
mention preference earlier. So what
yeah,
was
yeah.
I just
The preference is that I was trying to point it, when you have two pronoun people that use two pronouns, then the first one, it might be the preferred, but you can use both. And
gotcha.
one way to respect that person, it's using both in the conversation. So
Okay,
in one moment, if the person has like is he, him, they, them,
right,
you might in one sentence use he, him, or depends what are you saying,
right.
and the other one, like 5 minutes later, use they, them, and then you move back. So because it's the fluidity that it's part of who we are.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. And that's why I think the biggest thing is that people on this journey, you have to be okay with speaking and then just being comfortable in the space and the people that you're talking to allow for correction. Because once again, I don't claim to know it all, right? And I don't think you do either, but we're always learning because you mentioned earlier that your boss had pointed something out to you, right? So as we're on this journey of learning, it's about creating um, just sort of repetition and hopefully not in the bad habits, but correcting those habits and becoming more inclusive in our language and our behaviors and removing and interrupting some of our biases. Now, one of the things that I recognize is that you mentioned you are evolving to become your authentic self, and that is a journey. What advice would you give to those that are also evolving in their journey?
Uh, that is tough because it's a process. It's a different process for every single person. But what I'm doing, I try to be open to everything that it's around me, even it's not what I practice or what I believe, but I'll be respecting. And as I start this conversation, I'm learning all the time. So just be open to learn something new. Doesn't regardless what it's the topic, but you can learn that you can do coffee in a different way, that you can add this, that you can create that, and just don't be like so narrow-minded for some aspects in life. And because we are more than 7 billion people in this planet, and everyone has a single identity, even twins. And they could be like totally different in the personality, the behavior, and everything. So it just go and respect. That is, I think it's the big word. Just respect uh, the others. And the second tip, it's like learn with the others. If you have, and see if you're sharing something, that it could also be a moment for you to learn from yourself. So you be learning with the others, and you're part of the others.
I love that. And that's some great actionable advice that people can take as they evolve in their own authenticity. And you had mentioned something, and you just reiterated it again in sort of those tidbits that you provided, was that you, as you speak here today, that you would also be learning as well from yourself as you speak. What, if anything, at this point of the conversation, have you learned from yourself?
I think one of the point was going back to the past, and that I can see from a different perspective about the journey that takes me to now. Talking about my brother, and I just realized the relationship, how was the positive and negative impact from there. It's just I can see from a different perspective, and that I can try to use in my day by day. When I was mentioning the the joke, it's not a joke, but like my husband and I, we play with giving names to some objects, is like, oh, I think that I need to do more because I need to practice more for this and that. So it's just realize that I can do more, not just for myself, but for the communities that are around me, regardless like gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation.
I love that. And you know what? You have given us today a different perspective. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do is to allow people to share their lived experiences, provide different perspectives, even though it may not be your lived experience, it is someone else's. And if we can learn together, unlearn, and community come together, we can build communities that are all safe and inclusive for everyone. And, you mentioned the word respect, which I think is really important. So one of the questions we ask every guest that comes on our show, how do you think as a society we can move closer to a culture of belonging and respect?
Learning with each other. It's the piece that we are all the time learning. We are not here to teach. I'm not here to teach. I'm just sharing some of my experience. You may learn from there. You may just resonate with you, and in few years I remember that. So it's just one moment that if we're open-minded for the different, for the difference, for the others, you'll be learning, and when you learn, you'll be mirroring some behaviors, some aspects, and you'll be respecting, and you'll be creating the sense of belonging, because you also feel embraced by the world that you are creating.
Love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that. Where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. My profile is there, Luis Augusto Nobre. I work for Pride at Work Canada, Fierté au Travail Canada. Visit our website, www.prideatwork.ca. Follow us on social media, and it's one way to interact with me.
Amazing. Well, everyone, there you have it. You have the truth according to Luis Augusto Nobre. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite. And I hope that one day I can come back and share a different Luis.
I love it. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much for listening. Our show is sponsored by Discourse. We build belonging into the DNA of DEI. You can visit us on the web at discourseagency.com or check out our YouTube channel, Discourse Agency. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a review, drop a comment, and most importantly, share it with a fellow human. Thank you so much for your support. And remember, your truth is your experience. Bye for now.